Welcome to the New Moon Knitting Podcast. This is episode 5. So hello, welcome. My name is Hillary and this is New Moon Knitting. You can find me over on Ravelry and Instagram at New Moon Knitting as well. And today I have kind of a standard update podcast for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm wearing. I have 2 finished objects, 4 works in progress, and then at the end, I have a quick update on some plans that I'm going to get started on this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so today I am wearing my Aros Sweater. This is a top-down raglan sweater with all-over striping. The original calls for Sandnes Garn Tin Silk Mohair and Sandnes Garn Double Sunday held double. I used a hodgepodge of DK weight yarns to make my sweater. So last year in September, I was fortunate enough, my husband and I went on a trip to Europe together. We went to London and Amsterdam and Paris. And while we were there in each city, I picked up 2 skeins of yarn so that I could make kind of like a vacation memories sweater with all of those different yarns. And so let's see what the colors are. All right, so if we look at the colors here, the white and the blue are Durum Natura Ulysse that I picked up in Paris. The dark brown or like mid-tone brown and the beige brown is Life in the Long Grass DK Twist. And the beigey color is John Arbonne Textiles Knit by Numbers DK. I picked up both of those at, I believe it's called Loop in London. And then the black is Hooks and Yarns Torino. And the pink is Westwool Tandem. And I picked those up in Amsterdam. And all over, I really love the way. I'm very surprised, in 3 different countries, I was able to, sort of like not knowing what I was going to be able to get at the next store, I was able to pull together such a fun color palette. I think what really helps it is it's a lot of neutrals, and then it's got this bright pink. So I feel like they're not all competing against each other. They just kind of enhance the other ones. So yeah, I really love the way all these colors played together. I'm not usually a big color knitter, and so this was definitely out of my comfort zone, and I really like how they all came together. I knit this pattern on the recommended needles, which is a US 6 or 4mm, and I knit it in the 2nd size. One thing I really liked about this pattern is the shoulder construction. So like I said, I think you would technically still call it a raglan because of the way that you knit it in the round and you do your increases, but the way that it's shaped, it's more like a saddle shoulder at the beginning. So you're not making increases for the sleeve until you get pretty far down your shoulder and then you start to increase it. And that's why in the striping, if you've ever done stripes like in a traditional raglan, they're very square at the top, because of the way you're doing increases. But in this sweater, they almost kind of go straight across at the top, which is it's a really nice. It's it just creates I think a nicer silhouette for the striping. The only thing I didn't love, and I'm not sure if it's a problem with the pattern or just me, but you knit the body and then you pick up the stitches for the collar afterwards, and because of where I split for the the shaping here and where I picked up, I think it kind of pulls up on this stripe that it goes through, which I think it's just the nature of the fabric if you pick up additional stitches. But I kind of wish I don't think it would be quite as obvious if I had better centered where this split happened. So if this was in more of the middle of a stripe, I don't think it would be quite as apparent where that happens, and you wouldn't see that pull quite as much. It's not a huge deal. It's, I'm kind of nitpicking here. Yeah, that's kind of the, you know, sometimes when I look at it, that's kind of the only place where I wish I had done something a little bit different to maybe mitigate some of that pulling here. But otherwise, I think I pretty much did this to pattern. I think my sleeves are probably, because I couldn't get more of any of this yarn. I mean, you can order it online, but that kind of felt like it was going against like the spirit of this project. So because I was only working with what I had and I wasn't sure I was going to have enough of all the colors, particularly like this beige color, I didn't have quite as much of. I made it like a bracelet length. It's not quite as long, I think, as the pattern. And I wouldn't say it's like cropped, but it's not a super long sweater either. I thought it was a good knit. I finished it almost a year ago now, so I don't remember like a ton of specifics, but I think it's a pretty standard petite knit pattern. So if you're familiar with her style of writing, it's very similar. And I think the final product is super cute. So yeah, that is the Aros or Aros sweater by Petite Knit. Okay, so my first finished object today are my Wild Wool Trail Socks by Jen Joyce Designs. This is a cuff down sock with multiple ribbing motifs, color work, and a strong heel construction. I knit mine in a Cascade Heritage sock in the color white and in Cesium Yarns Merino sock in the color Creator of Beauty. So yeah, this like light purpley color. And these are what my final socks look like. I am really happy with how they came out. So I knit these in the medium size, so the third size. I did that because I went down a needle size. So the socks recommend a US 2 and I used a 1.5 just because I kind of know what my, I was afraid I was gonna have too loose a gauge, especially like on the plain stockinette areas. And so what I did to compensate for that and make sure it still fit my foot was I went up a size more than the size that the pattern recommended for my feet. So these are a medium in a US 1.5, which I didn't say is a 2.5 millimeter needle. I've talked about these a couple of times. The most interesting part of these socks, so there's a couple different types of ribbing you do to start. So, like a standard 2x2 and then a little bit wider and then this corrugated ribbing. And then the heel construction was new to me. I have since learned, it says in the pattern, it's called a strong heel. And I've talked about it before, so I won't harp on and on about it. But basically, it's similar to a heel flap in gusset. But rather than splitting for the heel flap, doing your heel turn and then picking up stitches to create the gusset, you knit everything in the round and you just increase, you do stitch increases along this line here for your heel flap. And then you do your heel turn and you do sort of like additional decreases along that heel turn until you get back to the stitches you had on the needle at the beginning. I found a free pattern that uses the strong heel if you're interested in trying it. And maybe you're not super interested in like all the other cool parts of this pattern. And so I will link that down below as well as an option. But I really liked this heel. I think I've said it before, I think it's nice because you get a lot more room in that instep part than if you do like an afterthought heel or like a wrap and turn or a German short row heel. And so if you're the kind of person where those kind of heels feel tight on your foot, something like this is kind of a nice option because it gives you some more space in there. And even with this like 1x1 color work, it still fits well on your foot. And that 1x1 color work, especially, for me, it can be tighter than obviously like your regular stockinette. I really love the color work. The only thing I would say is I did struggle a little bit with my tension on like the wrap and turns because you're working with the two colors, one in like 1x1 color work. And so, yeah, that's probably the only thing on this that I'm not super jazzed about how it came out, but I kind of reinforced the stitches along that line just so when I wear them, it's not they're not too loose, basically. I haven't had a chance to wear these. The pattern recommends, they said that they're good for hiking because of that reinforced strong heel and some of the reinforced toe with the 1x1 color work. And so I am excited to try them out. I would love to go for a hike somewhere near me in the next week or two if I have time and bring these and try them out and let you know how they did and how they felt out on the trail. But yeah, I'm so happy these are done. Love the colors. And one last time, these are the Wild Wool Trail Socks by Jen Joyce Designs. All right, so the next finished object I have is the classic cuffed hat by Pearl Soho. It is, as the name suggests, just your classic cuffed hat. It comes in a couple of sizes for baby, kid, and adult. The recommended yarn is Pearl Soho Worsted Twist, which is actually a discontinued yarn, but it's a worsted 100% wool yarn. I am using Lion Brand Respun, which is a 100% recycled polyester wool, and the color that I'm using for this is called Dark Denim. I have said that Lion Brand Respun is discontinued. I think I was wrong. So I looked on the website. I think they've just discontinued one size that they used to sell of it, and now they only sell it in what's called like the bonus bundle size, which is like a pretty large ball of yarn. But I looked on their website today, and I also looked on like a big box retailer in the United States, and both of them have it. So I work with natural fibers a lot, but if I'm knitting for charity or sometimes for people with kids, like I like to use something that is machine wash and dryable, particularly like for charity. If somebody's in a vulnerable situation, they probably don't have the time or energy to spend hand washing things. And so a hard wearing like polyester or acrylic yarn, I think, is a good option in those situations. And I do like that at least it's like recycled polyester. And I've had good experiences knitting with it. So yeah, that's a little bit about the yarn, I guess. I knit this hat actually, let me show you the hat before I talk about it. So this is the hat. It's a real basic hat construction with your ribbing that you double over, and then your crown shaping at 4 points. I ended up, the respun is like a DK. I ended up holding it double to get the thickness that I wanted, and it's like a nice thick cozy hat now. I knit this for charity. Every year I try to knit some pieces that I can donate to a charity that's close to me. And so I'm a little behind this year. I've done better in past years, but I wanted to be able to get like a couple of hats and mittens off the needles before like middle of December so that I can donate them and they can get them out to kids and other people in the community before the end of the year. Sorry, I don't think I said, this is the second size, which is it's like the recommended size for children. So they have like 3 sizes: baby, kid, and like adult. And so, yeah, I don't have that much to say about it. It's just like a really classic hat. It's also free, which is nice. Always nice to have a free pattern. And Pearl Soho is very detailed in their patterns on their website. So it's very easy to follow along. If you haven't knit a lot of hats before, I think this one would be a pretty easy one to get started with. But that is all I want to say about it. So yeah, one last time, this is the classic cuffed hat by Pearl Soho. Okay, so moving on to whips. My first whip today is the Lunefuld by Lunefuld. This is a top-down raglan pullover sweater with all over 3x1 ribbing, but reverse 3x1 ribbing and a very prominent raglan construction. So the pattern calls for, sorry, I have a hard time remembering these yarn names for some reason. BC Garn Simila Melange, which is a 100% wool in a DK weight, and Creme Cosole Wool Silky Kid, which is 72% mohair, 28% silk lace weight, so a DK and a lace held together, which will give you like a worsted gauge. I am knitting mine in Cascade 220. My color is 8555, and it is this very classic black color. So like no heathering, nothing. It's just really true black. And I made some good progress on this week. So I put it on a hanger so I can kind of show you. So yeah, this little cactus here is where I was when I showed this to you last week. And yeah, I made quite a lot of progress on the body. This is knit on a US 9, which is a 5.5mm needle. So it goes pretty quickly because of that needle size. Again, like the biggest problem I think I'm gonna have with this sweater is like, I have a light colored dog and this shows like every hair. Like I tried to use a lint brush before I started, and like if you look, you can already see like there's already some dog hair on it. But I do really like, you know, it's subtle because of the color, but I really do like this ribbing. The way that it is kind of opposite of where the pearls are the dominant stitch that you see, creates like these very structural lines. And then the raglan on it is a 7-stitch ribbed raglan. So again, like you get like a lot of like very bold, strong lines, which are made a little bit more subtle because of my color choice. And so I really like that. I think I just have a couple more inches on the body and then I'll do the ribbing and get to the sleeves. I think this is going to be like a very elegant finished object because of the color, because of this ribbing, like because of this little mock neck. I just think it's going to be like a very classic piece that goes with like everything, and I can dress up and I can dress down. So I'm very excited to finish it so I can get to wear it in the next couple of months. So yeah, gonna keep working on that, and yeah, hopefully next time I can show you some sleeves. But yeah, so this one once again is the Lunefuld pattern by Lone Kjeldsen. All right, so my next whip are the Country Socks by Jen Joyce Designs. This is an alternative pattern that comes with the Wild Wool Trail Socks that I showed earlier. So it's just a play on kind of the same construction, but the way the pattern describes it is like Wild Wool Trail Socks are good for hiking, Country Socks are good for throwing on when you're at the campfire at the end of the night. And so I've showed these before when I finished my first sock. This was the first one that I made. So the yarn that I'm using is On the Round. This is their Nimble sock, which is a 85-15 merino nylon, and the color is Beauchamp. And yeah, so I really like this color. My mom picked it out. So these are going to be a Christmas gift for my mom. And the last time I showed them, I said they remind me a little bit of like river rocks, you know, like these like blues and grays and like soft kind of browns. It just makes like a really lovely sock. Not a color I would pick out myself, but a really fun color to work with. And I'm glad my mom picked it. So that's my finished one. On my second one, I just finished the heel turn. So it's the same heel construction as the Wild Wool Trail Socks, that strong heel. The only difference being on this one, obviously you're only working with one color, and you do the slip stitch, like a slip stitch heel, pretty common heel pattern if you're familiar with it. Yeah, I'm really happy with how these are turning out. Hoping to finish them. I definitely will finish them in time for Christmas, which is when I'll be giving them to my mom, but hoping to get them wrapped up relatively soon so I can work on a couple of other gift knits that I have planned before it's too late. But yeah, so yeah, these are coming along. Not too much else to say about them since they're pretty similar to the Wild Wool Trail Socks. But yeah, the Country Socks by Jen Joyce Designs. All right, so my next whip is the 2x2 by Anne Gagnon. This is a 2x2 ribbed cuffed hat. The pattern calls for a couple of different worsted yarns. Cascade 220 and Malabrigo are some of the suggested ones. I am using a couple of yarns I picked up last month at Loop in Philadelphia. So this is what their yarn band looks like. I picked up their Posy yarn, which is their Kid Silk Mohair, and their Sprig, which is a superwash merino, and both are in the colorway Geranium, and this is what they look like. This really, really lovely classic red with, like, I think some more pink undertones. You can really see like the pinkiness in the mohair and the way that that takes the dye. But yeah, these really lovely reds. I made a couple of inches of progress this week. So last time I showed this, I had just cast on. I only had like 3 rounds of knitting. So last time I was down here right at the beginning, and yeah, I've made a couple inches of progress. Again, not a whole lot to show on this because it's just 2x2 rib, except for I really love this color. I think like I've been looking for this red. A lot of reds, I think for me, either they lean like too cool or like too Christmassy, or sometimes they're too orange. But I think this is like right in the sweet spot of the red that I've been looking for a while. And if you've ever seen a geranium flower, I think that's a really good representation of the red that it is. I am knitting these on a US 6. There's only one size for the pattern, so I'm just knitting that size. It is a free pattern, so that's really great. But sometimes with free patterns, you don't get as many size options, particularly for accessories like hats and things. But that's okay. I think this will fit my head because it's ribbing. I think you have a little more flexibility in the sizing of a head that you can fit with it. Oh, and the only modification I'm planning to make is I'm going to make mine a little bit longer than the pattern recommends. So looking at the photos in the pattern and on people's projects, this is definitely knit to be like very flat on your head. And I like a hat that has like just like a little bit of space. Like it's not going to be slouchy because of the nature of the fabric. I think like a ribbing like this, it's not going to be slouchy. But I like when hats have like just like a teeny bit of room right at the top. So, but I also love a big thick brim. So I'm just gonna stick in the 2x2 until I get to what I think is a appropriate length. I'll fold it. I'll try to get a sense of like how much room the crown shaping is gonna take, and then I'll start my crown shaping there. So yeah, that's it for this week on this one. One last time, this is the 2x2 by Anne Gagnon. All right, and my last whip this week is a new cast on. So I have cast on the Aros Sweater by Caroline Benson, also known as Agio Knits. Apologies if that pronunciation is incorrect. This is an all-over cabled Aran weight sweater with a really unusual to me construction because it's knit side to side rather than top down or bottom up. I am using, so if you watched my last episode, I mentioned that I went to the Frederick Fiber Fest and I picked up this really lovely Surrey from Yarn Jam. So this is their Surrey Halo, which is baby Surrey and silk, 65-35. And this color is called Seashell. So it's like a gray with like a little bit of like purple undertones. And I had mentioned that I had purchased this to go with a purple fingering weight yarn that I have, Amano Skinny Yana, I believe it's called. But then I remembered I also have this in my stash, and given like the time of year and the type of sweaters I want to knit, this felt like a better fit than a fingering weight. This is a another Cascade. So this is Cascade 220 Heathers. The color is 1007, which is lepidolite heather. And lepidolite is a type of stone. Maybe I'll put a picture up so you can see what it looks like. But yeah, so this is the color. So it's another purple I had in my stash, and I thought it would look really nice with this this Surrey alpaca to create like a nice purple sweater. And so I picked out the Aros mostly because I was absolutely fascinated with its construction. I have never knit a sweater side to side, sleeve to body to sleeve, and that really fascinated me. And so I really wanted to try it, and I thought like this might be a good way to do it. The pattern does call for a yarn. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. I'm just going to put it up here. You know, a lot of times I do try to do like a little bit of looking to see if I can like get close, like estimate what the sounds are supposed to be. But this one I knew I was going to be way off. And so I just thought it would be easier if I showed the name to you. Anyway, because of the yarns that I'm using, I think, and it's a cable pattern, like I want to call out like two things I was aware of. One, my yarns are different colors, so there's going to be some heathering. And two, that Surrey is fuzzy. And so both of those things I think are going to work against like a real crisp cabling, you know, like it's going to muddy that pattern a little bit. But I'm okay with that because I'm not somebody who wears a lot of all over cabled sweaters. I don't gravitate to them. But this one was so interesting to me, and I think I'm gonna wear it more if it is like a little bit, if the construction of those cables is muted just a little bit by the yarn choice. And so far the way it's knitting up, I do like it. So I have not made much progress. I've just done I've done the cuff and a couple of rounds of the cable repeat, but this is what I have so far. So yeah, you can see that heathering in the yarn and the way they're held together, but I wouldn't say like you can't make out, you know, it's not like you can't see what the cables look like. Like that's a honeycomb, and these are some classic twists. And so I really like the way these colors look. It's very similar to, let's see if not very similar, but pretty similar to like the purple here. I think I'm just on like whatever color this is, lilac maybe, or lavender. I'm just on that color purple kick right now, and I want to knit it all the time. But yeah, I do really like how this is starting to come out. My only criticism, and not even like a criticism, but like one call out for the pattern is it only comes in 3 sizes. It's a sweater, it only comes in 3 sizes. And there's not a ton of range between those 3 sizes. So the smallest there's only about 20 centimeters of difference between the smallest and the largest size, which is a little over 7 inches. And the largest size is 140 centimeters for like the chest measurement, which I believe is around 55 inches, which is like not terrible, but this is a sweater that's supposed to be, have like a lot of positive ease. And so, yeah, I still purchased it and wanted to work on it because I was interested in this construction and I couldn't get it out of my head, this like very interesting shape. If you have any other recommendations for similar patterns, I'll be honest, I did some cursory searching, but I don't think I was looking under like the best search terms on Ravelry to find something like this. But if you know of patterns that are more size inclusive that have this construction, please let me know. And I will be very happy to share them on my next podcast. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about this for now. One last time, this is the Aros Sweater by Carolyn Benson, or Edgio Knit. So the last thing I want to talk about today is a knitting plan I have coming up in like the next week or so. But it's something new to me. It's something kind of I haven't tried before, and so I wanted to talk about it a little bit before it gets started. So I have a younger brother, and he's very interested in history. And one time period he's very interested in is World War One. And I thought a nice gift for him. I've knit him some hats and things in the past, but I thought one thing that I could knit for him that would be like something he would really appreciate and would be really special is if I did a vintage knit from World War One. Now, I have never done any vintage knitting, so like big sort of grain of salt with like everything I say moving forward. If you want to watch somebody with like a lot of historical knowledge talk about vintage knitting, I would recommend two channels. Retro Claude is fantastic, and also Engineering Knits. So they both are really great resources if you want to see more vintage knitting from people who actually know what they're talking about. But I did like some cursory searching, and I found a copy, I'm looking at it right now, of Fleischer's Knitting and Crochet Manual. It is the 16th edition, and it was published in 1918. And in the introduction to the booklet, the first paragraph of the introduction is, in the 16th edition of Fleischer's Knitting and Crochet Manual, precedence has been given to the needs of those who are cheerfully enduring the hardships and dangers of warfare on land and sea. Nothing that we can do for their comfort should be neglected. The section devoted to service wear has been carefully prepared and contains only designs that have been approved by competent authorities. So this was really interesting to me because this manual seems to have a set of knitting patterns that were approved by authorities. I'm not 100% sure what that means. This was a company based in Philadelphia, so I'm assuming some type of US military approval, but I'm not 100% sure. But I thought this was like a really good place to start. And so I looked at their service wear section, and they have quite a few patterns in here. Some of them like very standard caps and mitts and some sweaters and things like that. But then I saw this one called Helmet, and I was like, that's the one I have to knit. It's not like something you would see most people knitting in 2024. Like the hats and the mitts and things, they're not that far outside the realm of like what you might see on like a modern Ravelry pattern. But this one felt like very of the time and like something that would be very unique. So the pattern is very sparse, which is something I'm kind of aware vintage knitting patterns are, but I'm not really intimidated because the construction of it is all things I'm familiar with. So what it appears to be is basically you do two garter panels, which are going to create this scarf in the front and the back that you can wrap around your neck. And then you do 2x2 ribbing, basically like as a long kind, like you would sort of for like a very long hat. But then you cast off, knit, and then cast on stitches to create this space for your face to go through when you're knitting it. And one thing I think is interesting is like all the crown shaping, there's no ribbing. Like a lot of times on modern projects, you do ribbing up there. My guess is like from the picture, it's under a hat or a helmet, you know, maybe it just would fit better underneath things if it wasn't ribbed. I don't know, again, not that smart. So the yarn that it's called for is Fleischer's Knitting Worsted, which I would guess is similar to like what we would call worsted today, based on the stitch counts. But then the needles were surprising to me. So it calls for a number 3, sometimes called a number 11 needle. And I'm pretty sure this is a US 3 because one, this is a US based company. And I found with some cursory searching online that I don't really know if they use this terminology anymore, but there was a system of numbering needles in the UK at one point where an 11 would have lined up with what we call a US 3. So it's a US 3, which is a 3.25 millimeter which feels tight for a worsted yarn and also feels tight for like a grown man's head with the number of stitches they recommend to cast on. So the total stitches it assumes for the part that goes over your face is 102 stitches. As a reference, that 2x2 hat that I'm knitting is also meant for like a worsted weight yarn, and it has 112 stitches cast on, and it's knit on a much larger needle than a 3. So I think I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna use a bigger needle. I'll probably use like a 5 or a 6, so that it's not like, first of all, so it's not painful to knit with, and also so that it fits my brother's head, okay, and like can go over his face. I need to figure out what yarn I'm gonna use. I think I might use the pattern calls for the colors khaki or gray. I do have some gray yarn. It's wool yarn, and I don't think it's superwash. So I think for my brother, a person who does not wear much wool, that's gonna be kind of itchy, like especially on your cheeks and on your neck. So I may end up using, I have some more of that Lion brand respun, and it is like, it's fairly soft. I'm touching the hat I made. Like, I think that will be a little bit nicer on your face. And I have it in black. So I think like for the way my brother wears things, I think like he might like that color. And so yeah, this is an experiment for me. It's not something I've ever done. If you've done like vintage knitting, I would love to hear about your experience. If you have any other like historical references or like information that would be beneficial for me, that I obviously would love to hear it. Yeah, follow along. I'm hopefully going to start working on that in the next week or so, but I thought I would like soft launch it because it's very different, I think, from the other stuff I've been doing lately. And so yeah, I hope you're excited to see how that comes out. All right, so I think that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I'm doing, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe. All right, I will see you all in the next one.